So emptying out the matrices. You have a thought. If you engage that thought, you'll get a relative feeling. You experience the feeling. Now, you need a certain amount of energy in a thought to bridge through the mental matrix and form it's sort of like if you have water on a plate and you put another plate on top, and then you slowly start pulling the plates across, there'll be sticky points, so the water will stick to both plates. Or if it was glue, the glue wouldn't be everywhere, it would have stretching points. And the matrix, every thought form has a stretching point where thought and it transmits to intellect and into feeling. And it's not a clean layering the way this visual is, as it's overlapping the same space, because it's dimensions intertwining. But what happens on the connection between these dimensions is the bridge builds according to the thought. So if I have a thought that generates a feeling, and the feeling comes into me acting upon it, and the action is repeated to make a habit, the habit reticulates back from the physical into the astral unconscious, builds a huge field of behavior which locks in your astral matrix to behave in that way, so you don't need any effort to do it. It's an unconscious behavior. And so the matrices, they're like these sticking points of behaviors, and they're bridges between the bodies. So when we want to clean the matrix, let's say there's a blockage somewhere, that blockage is either an extreme separation on a particular idea, or an extreme connection on a theme or idea between the bodies. So when you're cleaning it out, there's going to be all this emotional magnetism that needs to be released in order for that person to have a harmonious relationship to that thought, idea, behavior. And when the sticking points are there, the person might have extreme aversion to something, they may have strong emotional reactions to something because of what is stuck in the matrices. So when we're talking about cleaning the matrices, we're really talking about black and white mirror stuff, and how stuff in your mirror moves through the mental, astral, physical body, how easily it moves. So let's say we develop a habit of vital breathing. You release time to go into the astral, release space to go into the mental. Now you're in the living mind frequency, and you interact with the akasha, and you go universal living mind frequency. You're building a connection through the matrices and synchronizing the matrices, synchronizing the bodies to be able to access that state of consciousness easily. If you don't build those connections, then that'll be an occasional experience when the environment synchronizes it for you. So the synchronicity in the environment in a powerful forest will align the matrices, and you go, there's that experience again. And then you leave the forest and you're desynchronized. So one of the most important parts of ownership of a skill is to build the synchronicity through the matrices in such a way that you can ritually activate it. Because you can't function in the world in high spiritual states. The world's a physical place, you need physical practicality and deal with physical reality. But you also want to have these states where, it's practice time, relax into light, and you go there, and you want to go to the places and frequencies that you get the most benefit from, and you need some sort of ritual to get there, to activate and synchronize the alignment. So when we're cleaning the matrices, emptying them out, we're also learning how to build them in such a way that we build tuning forks and rituals that take us to the places and states of consciousness we want to be in. So if you're a person who laughs a lot and you're happy, you've got connections and synchronicities through the matrices that allow you to express those feelings and act in that way. So if you want to clean any of those out and remove them, the way they bridge is the key. Because if you don't clean the matrix out, the unconscious will feed those thoughts, feelings, and actions without your will. It'll just be there as a habit. So any habit that you have has a synchronicity in the matrices so that the unconscious can function to make you feel in a certain way. And if those matrices weren't built, you wouldn't be having those unconscious feelings. So when we're cleaning them out, we're cutting off the pathways for negative emotions to materialize independent of your will. So unconscious emotions that just pop out. By cutting the pathways, you cut off the route in which that energy flows. And then once you've cut off the route in which energy flows, it means that energy can't get your attention, so it starts to die. It fizzles up and disappears. All energetic patterns require attention to exist. It's your mind which actually gives them power. So when you pay attention to an emotional pattern, the mind touches it, the emotion gets stimulated, oh, I'm alive, the living mind loves me, and that emotion can flourish. You cut the matrices off to it, it can't get your attention, so it withers and dies and disappears. You don't even have to release the emotion, you just cut it off and, so you cut the roots of the bush and it dies and disappears and goes back into the soil. So this approach to cleaning the matrices, it's kind of like a hack to get in there and work with your black and white mirror, rather than building fire element in the astral body and transforming the fire emotion, which is super efficient. You can just cut off the roots in which that negative fire emotion express themselves. You lose the energy of it. So it's not energy efficient, but it's very fast. It's very calming, and it's very, I feel relieved of that, because I haven't seen that emotion for a while. It's just an efficient way of releasing. Okay, so how do we access matrices? Now, we've done the exercise for touching balance. Now, anything that is an unconscious expression of an emotion, your balance is being taken away from you and given to something else. So if you lose your temper has your balance, not you. So we're not talking about just physical center of balance, it's a door to it, but emotional centers of balance. The moment you cut off that connection to what's controlling you, the intensity of the emotion, your center of balance of the emotion goes back to your consciousness rather than to an unconscious pattern. So when we're talking about the matrices and dealing with physical centers of balance, for Qigong you take away a physical center of balance by opening the matrices and run the energy through. The energy goes through the matrices very easily to influence a person. We want to do this to ourselves. So we want to be able to open up the matrices, release whatever is a problem in those matrices, and then put energy in to influence our own state of consciousness. And emptying the matrices, first identify what the matrices are. We've done those training exercises. Then identify the connection of the thought, feeling, action, how the three bodies connect on an unconscious level for us to have emotional experiences. So you identify the thought, feeling, action connection as just a normal, this is the emotion and this is how I express it, and this is how my mental balance moves from my mind to the mind of the emotion. And then we act something out unconsciously. And we do this in positive ways all the time. When you drive, you don't think about driving, you just drive. Oh, I want to go to the store, and you go to the store. So your unconscious connections through the matrices control the body, and you have the driver consciousness in you. You're mostly there, but something's doing everything unconsciously. You brake unconsciously, you react unconsciously, and that's serving you. It's a good thing. So we don't want to wipe the matrices out completely, because we'd basically be a baby again, have to relearn everything, and that would be silly. So we isolate particular patterns, irritability and negative emotions and overthinking and these things, and then we go, okay, let's work on that. And to get to the matrix, you have to go through either experiencing the emotion in the moment or remembering the experience of when you experienced it, and then you take it to that feeling of how you were out of balance. It wasn't you in charge, it was the emotion in charge. And you could literally say, it wasn't me, it was my fire emotions that was in charge of me in that moment. A very poor excuse, but that's literally what's happened. It's not you who's angry, it's anger expressing itself that's within the body. And it's a pattern that just got introduced into you at some point and you accepted it. And your system's acting it out. So there's a sense of that part of me, that fire element that expresses those emotions, that's an individual identity. So when it goes from me being in charge to that fire emotion being in charge, my mental balance Because here you're in charge for a moment while I lose my temper. Then you have the astral expression of it and the physical expression of it, the astral feeling and the physical acting out. So when you lose balance and it goes into something else and that process happens, that loss of balance is the first mental matrix connection. You want to reconnect it back to your balance. So you want to cut that out first. And by relaxing akasha into this and making a prayer, I return this to God. The process, the energy, the everything there, you just want to dissolve it back into nature and let nature recycle. And you have a going away ceremony that suits your personality. You're cutting it off, you're letting it go, you're giving it back to nature, you're giving it back to the creative process to do something else with that energy. It's not really needed in you anymore. And you do that inside of akasha. So the mental matrix, you put akasha and you soften it, and you let that balance come back to you, back to mindfulness, back to your center of gravity. And then you go into the astral matrix and you dissolve it there. You repeat the prayer, you release it. And then you go into the akasha itself, even though you're using akasha into your own etheric body, and you affirm in the akasha, in an akashic state, in an akashic jhanic state of affirming that you've let that go, you've released it. From there, the energy that remains in the astral and physical body will want to be used or consumed in some way. If you don't use the energy, it's irritability, it's fire, there's a firecracker there and the energy that can't come out. So some people go for a run. My favorite was getting on the wooden dummy or doing bag work when I was younger. Some way of getting energy out. I eventually switched to surfing and body surfing and ocean kayaking and snorkeling out in the ocean, and that would get the energy out really fast. You know, you're just out there a bit and it's all gone. It's released. It works very, very efficiently, the ocean, or large bodies of water. Waterfalls are fantastic. You know, if you have access to that, make use of it as much as you can. So this cleaning the matrices in relation to that one thing, and then you go through black and white mirror and you release the matrix in relation to all these things. Now the thing we're working on is releasing the matrices in relation to non-dual light. So when you are vital breathing and you feel vital energy and you feel the life force of the body, you're literally going into the vital astral matrix that connects the astral physical body together and taking control of that and releasing time. So that allows your body to be released so the consciousness can move up to a higher state. And if you're just going to the astral, that would be the higher state, but we're wanting to go into the non-dual light state. So you akasha breathe in such a way. Now, for the beginner, they're doing first transformation with vital, demagnetizing. For the advanced, you go to the akasha of that vital and you demagnetize and clean and release with the intent of the pathway to light being freed up. So when you make a prayer, may the path of the light guide and protect, and you akasha breathe into the matrices, you're releasing and clearing a path to light. That's the intention. So it's that pathway which is being released. So when you're in light, there'll be a minimal amount of physical pullback, a minimal amount of emotional pullback, and a minimal amount of mental pullback, that your consciousness, you're not actually using your mental body when you're in light. You're using light consciousness in light. So when you're vital breathing, you're in your vital body. When you're astral breathing, you have astral body consciousness. When you're in mental spirit state, you're in spirit consciousness. The spirit is interacting with it, but it's a vibrational scale where the essence of consciousness underlays and overlays all those bodies top to bottom. So when we say mental body, I'm very often referring to pure consciousness that can move up and down this vibrational scale, not the mental body that contains all the attachments that force samsara reincarnation. We want to momentarily be freed of that. And when you're working with akasha, you get these momentary releases of that so the mind can just move and transfer to whatever it wants in that moment. So the diamond exercise, we akasha breathe into the matrices. Once you've cleared the matrices with akasha and the intention of moving up into light, then you breathe the akasha not just in the matrices but through the whole mental astral physical body, and let the awareness rise. Now, normally we go, oh, I just akasha breathe, I'm an akasha. And you are, but you aren't. If you akasha breathe into all the bodies and let your mind rise, it rises in accordance with what's holding it, what's binding it, what's attaching to form. And as you accumulate more akasha, you get a sense of, I'm moving into akashic trance rather than using my ability to accumulate akasha to hold me. And so it's a different thing. Because you've worked with akasha so many times, you can accumulate it very quickly, but you're not in akashic trance. You just used your habit to accumulate akasha. It's not until you observe your consciousness floating within akasha and you get this, oh, here we go, and then you move up, oh, I'm an astral, the akasha of the astral body, and the akasha of the mental body, and now I'm the akasha of the etheric body, and the akasha of the light field. And that's where because you let yourself float there, in order to come back, you're going to float back. You're going to come back down slowly. If you go quickly, you'll come back very, very quickly, and you won't have the endurance over time to stay in that state if you go there quickly. So you accumulate akasha with the intent of going to a place, and you float through akasha until you get to that place. And in this case, it's working through akashic trance into the brotherhood of light. And once you have floated up to that, and everyone has a different rate of floating, because they have a different rate of how many times you've done it, and how big is that air bubble underwater and how fast does it move up. Tiny air bubble moves slowly and a big one just rushes to the top. It's a habit. And you float through the akasha until you just, there it is. And then you just keep relaxing up. And then you'll bubble at a certain point where the bubble doesn't want to move anymore, and you've got to break release the tension so you can keep going. Sort of like you get contained by small things sometimes. So let's say I've got a stress about something I'm worrying about, and I'm relaxed through akasha, and oh, something's holding me. Let's dissolve that. And you keep, what else? Let's dissolve it. And you get a cleaner, longer akashic sit. So you can be there for a very long time. If you don't follow that rule, you won't be able to stay in akashic trance for long. You won't get those nice, clean 3-hour, that was amazing sets. It'll be fluctuating in and out because of your entry procedure. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, they often talk about this 90 minutes that it takes to get into jhana, to enter into jhana. And it has a lot to do with, you can go into jhana instantly out of habit, but you can't stay there, because you went in instantly, the laws of rhythm are taking you out instantly. So it's how long you want to stay there. So you can use rituals to get into high states for short periods of time. Now, fast is really good. It's really important to have that. And the reason why is if you meet someone, you're unconscious, and just in a few seconds goes, boom, flash, all that information about you gets transferred to my unconscious. And either like you or dislike you if it resonates with my unconsciousness image of itself. I like this person because he's similar. I don't like this person because he's too different. That's the way the system basically works. And if you can be spiritually aware for those few seconds, you read the person cleanly. Go, oh, that's them. I got it. I know who they are. Versus just your unconscious knowing who they are. So you need moments of equanimity, moments of openness in your spirit senses to take advantage of those energetic exchanges and know what those exchanges are and read them cleanly. And your psychometry skill works better fast than slow. And it's a kind of ironic that the best experiences I've had with cleanness of psychic impressions have been the fast impressions, not the slow impressions. The slow impressions it's like a bottleneck for information. It's sort of like, I can see the spirit, versus, boom, I know everything about the spirit. The download happened really quickly. And so it's a very interesting phenomenon. The quicker, the better for this phenomena. So you want to train both. Now for jhanic experiences, where you're moving up into formless jhanas, and you release time and space with the breathing, and you start breathing your akasha into the ritual of having done it before, you just remember it. You want to be separating out your perception and how akasha affects you to what akasha is. They're two different things. When the akasha touches you, the matrix is thin, there's a slight drunkenness, slight loss of balance, there's a release of space, and So everything becomes, time becomes warped, space becomes warped. That's your response to akasha. That's not akasha itself. Akasha itself has more of a clear, infinite space, and it's clear because it's underlying space. It's not space itself, but there's a clarity to it. And when you own it, you're equanimous and stable and grounded in the clarity of that vacuous, infinite sensation. The responses in your body of, oh, I'm losing balance, that's a reaction to akasha. Now, you can use the reactions to akasha to invoke akasha. Your body remembers the akashic feeling. You go to the feeling and you invite the akasha in through the feeling. It's a yin-yang door. It's you hit that one, this happens. You hit that one, that happens. So you can use either method. But eventually, you want to get rid of the symptoms and go straight to the cause. And what allows you to do that is a slow accumulate akasha and release the fabric of consciousness up. And you'll notice a few things will happen is as you float your mind up inside the akashic feeling quality, your mind perceives the akasha differently, and the symptoms and side effects of akasha fall to the background, and the clarity of the consciousness shifts. You're going from it being I can't see much, I can just feel this, to getting clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer in your spirit. What tends to reflect first is you. You're looking in the mirror. It's your own stuff. From physical stuff to emotional stuff to baggage in the mental body, what causes samsara, the reincarnation process. You just see your stuff. And it's like the universe has this built-in mechanism for evolution. You've got to deal with your stuff to evolve. And that's why you see it. And it makes sense that when you're entering into akasha, which is a state of infinity, anything that is not infinity is what you see, and you are you, so you see you. You see the resistors. So it's just a self-built, wow, it's just perfect. This is what I've got to work on. So you get those experiences you go through. Now this floating sensation and moving up the vibrational scale won't happen unless you invite it to happen. So if you build akasha, you'll just float in the space without changing frequency or state. I want to rise up through releasing time, releasing space, and rise up into non-dual light. And the prayer of may the path of light guide and protect, and it could be any other non-dual light prayer that you have resonance with, that is the vacuum. Prayers are very vacuous. That is the pull. You put that into akasha, and we have this up-down. It actually could be on the floor. It's not subject to linear space, but we have the perception of linear space. We put the prayer inside our vibrational scale, up and down. And then once the prayer is there, when you breathe akasha, you notice consciousness moving towards where the prayer exists and resides. And the mind just floats towards it. And the path of light, which connects you to the brotherhood of light and the non-dual light field, where you just have trillions of beings in jhanic state of concentration and prayer, and that all that goes with that, you just float up towards it until your mind's resting within it.